Hello and welcome to the Idiosyncratic Nightmare Podcast, the show where Michael Klein and myself make a portrait of the guest while we're talking to that guest. And in this episode, we're talking to the absolute legend, Sean Cheatham. If you've ever looked up online anything about alla prima portrait painting, Sean has inevitably come up. He's been a master of it for decades, and he's going to share with us some of his insights about portrait painting, but also how he engages with the creative lifestyle. So without further ado, let's jump into the portrait session and start talking with Sean Cheatham. Sean, for people who might not know who you are, which I would be shocked to find out that there are people that don't know who you are in the portrait painting world, maybe you could just introduce yourselves. Introduce yourself. Let us know what you're up to, and maybe what what your career is like. I don't know. Just introduce yourself. Let us know who you are, so that we know a little bit about you.
Well, there are many selves to me. So my name is Sean Cheatham. I'm originally from San Francisco, but I've lived in California the whole time. I went to school for illustration in Southern California in Pasadena. Just wanted to work in movies and stuff like that, but fell in love with traditional sort of oil painting and all the drawing just through the foundation studies, and realized like, whoa, you can just paint whatever you want and make money. That's cool. So kind of followed that path, and I've always had respect for teachers, so I knew at some point I'd want to do that, but I didn't think it would be right out of school, but that's kind of how that went. Currently, I'm doing some teaching, not as much. I've done full-time college teaching. I've traveled for workshops. Right now I'm doing more like online, trying to embrace that, which I'm not used to because I'm, like you said, the alla prima kind of thing has always been an in-person with live models experience, and I've been teaching now for 22 years or so, and it was really hard to make the transition to online, but I'm starting to do it and enjoy it. It's nice to be able to like wear your pajamas while you're at work. And I'm doing like, what else am I doing? Like I do illustration work. I'm working on the mural stuff for a friend. I've got a gig working for the United States Mint, so I'm designing coins and medals, which I haven't announced or talked about, but it's on their website, and I've been working with them all year. Sort of a freelance gig, and I can't show anything until it comes out, and we're like 2 years behind. Yeah, so that's kind of it. I do a little bit of fine art still, commission work, gallery work, but I'm really into like I build guitars. I've been playing music for a long time, and my son's into it now, so I'm spending a lot of time doing that with him. And honestly, like if I could just build guitars and ride my dirt bike in the woods, that'd be cool. But those things don't exactly pay the bills yet. But that's sort of where I'm at right now, kind of juggling like trying to enjoy my life with trying to cover all the bills for everybody that needs their money.
Yeah. All right. So, West Coast based, went to LCAD. I'd love to know, just from my own curiosity, your first impressions about education in painting. I mean, I think I couldn't be wrong in saying you probably came to it with quite a bit of facility early on. And then maybe if you could just tell me what your early educational experiences were like. I'd just love to hear it kind of in general, what your impressions of what learning to paint was like.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so I went to Art Center College of Design, which is another one in Southern California. I don't think LCAD was even a thing then, but I do like what they've got going on, and I've gone down there to talk to them and stuff. And there's a bit of crossover with kind of the Southern California illustration and painting scene. But I early on I didn't. I was, as a kid, I think it's drawing. You like drawing. If you're introduced to painting, then that's something special that like, you had to have somebody around you to do that. And I don't, my mom's Chinese, so I had like that side of the family was a lot of artists. Like my grandfather went to the Shanghai Academy of Art, and I have his old post-shot box and stuff. And so I was just around it a lot. And it wasn't really like career thoughts. I thought I'll be a astronaut or a firefighter, something cool. And art was just something that you knew how to do or didn't know how to do.
Yeah.
or a cowboy or whatever. I used to do that, a lot of the drawings. I loved, like, going to the rodeo, even though we're in San Francisco, we still had that coming through, but, like, just, cool stuff maybe. I thought that would be my career. Not that art isn't amazing, but I just as a kid, that's not really on a lot of people's lists of what's a good dream career. But so being around it, I just kind of loved it so much and did it, and it was just part of life. And my dad was a jeweler, so he did a lot of design and drawing too. So I got it from both sides of the family. And then my mom's cousin went to the same school I went to. She did product design, but she was kind of pushing me to go to that school. And I think if you're looking into art education, that's one of the top ones for illustration and design
Mm.
in the country, and it's been around since the 1930s. So maybe because it was in California, it was just more accessible. But we also had the Academy of Art in San Francisco. But I just, went to school. I applied. It was hard to get in. I got in, and I remember first semester, I tried oil paints. It must have been for the first time, and it was the last day of a figure drawing class. He like had us trying oil paints, and I just was like, "What is this stuff?" It felt awful. I had
Yeah.
never felt so out of control, like making a two-dimensional image. And that's how he kinda just left us. It was the last day of class, the last day no one cares about, and that was it. And then but there was something there that just kinda hooked me, you know? And I think there was amazing painters at our school. Some of the guys that are out there now that people might know were ahead of me a little bit, and you'd see their work in the, gallery and stuff and couldn't believe what these guys were doing. So I think there was just, like, being around it, you kinda had to, like, push yourself. And eventually, I
Mm.
got some great teachers in oil painting and learned a lot about kind of organizing it and not just throwing paint around. But I remember how hard it was in the beginning. It was terrible, but something just about it, like, grabbed me, and I never looked back.
I would love to know also, like, your transition from that student life, obviously, which, in some ways, like, it feels like it's for forever ago, but your transition from that into being a professional painter, eventually, where I want to land is starting to talk about like some of the different eras of work that I've seen you make. But maybe first we could just
Mhm.
get into like what that transition was like, what your early experiences of like kind of going pro were.
Yeah, yeah, I got really lucky. I used to say, I wanna show in galleries and do and teach, and maybe when I'm, like, 50 years old, which I'm almost there. A couple more years left, and I'll be at that point I was talking about. But now, like I said, I've been teaching, it'll be half my life by then. And, the month I graduated, a lot of art schools, I think, when the younger people are graduating and they show some sort of promise, they end up, assisting for teachers, substituting for teachers, and that kinda gets you into teaching. But the,
Hmm.
Los Angeles Academy of Figurative Art was just opening as an idea in a school when I was graduating the same month, so August of, like, 2002 or something. And
Mm.
they just started recruiting people who were graduating that were the painters, a handful of teachers, a handful of painters, and then some other people in the industry, pretty big names in the industry came to teach at that school. So I started teaching the same month I graduated just on kind of
Wow.
being, based on my work at school, and it was just connections. And that's really school to me is a lot of that. Like, you might get a lot of skills in school, but hopefully you get connections to your next level, your career,
Hmm.
people that see your work ethic and see your work and hopefully pass on some sort of jobs. So I got
Yeah.
that. I started teaching there. It wasn't, at the time, I recall it being like $40 an hour, which isn't a great starting gig. I think 20 something years ago. That was pretty good. And I was like, all right, I can, I barely had any rent. I had roommates, so it was cheaper. And
Mm.
then through that, I had a model pose for me in a class who happened to
Hmm.
be working at this gallery, Morseburg Gallery, and there was a bunch of guys showing there, like, Jeremy Lipking and I think, like, Glenn Dean, and those guys were all kinda showing there, and they're probably a year or 2 older than me, and
Hmm.
so that was the place I wanted to show. I was like, when I'm
Yeah.
getting into, like, more traditional painting, I wanted to show there, and that girl showed my work to the owner, and he invited me in right away, took a bunch of the stuff I did in school and immediately sold it. So I was just like,
Wow.
it was too easy in some way. Like, I like to say I was in the right place at the right time, but I also had the right portfolio and all that. And,
Yeah.
like, so within that same month, I was showing in the gallery, selling school projects I did. Pretty decent money too, some up into the, like, 5 figures for my first time, and it was just like, "Wow, this is amazing."
Wow.
Like, of course, you're sharing half, but it just felt like it was all of a sudden like, "Okay, here we go," and, like, um, that was it. I mean, that really got
How
me
old were you at
going.
that time?
How old was I? Probably 24? What year was that?
24.
2002? 25, 24, 25, yeah. Yeah, super
Great.
young to be doing all that, but there was a lot. I mean, all those guys were young, like Jeremy and everybody that was showing in that, were all pretty young. They probably seemed old to me because they were, like, a year older. But yeah, it was like a bunch of those people I met at that time are doing it still, and that guy definitely, like, had something going on. He wasn't a great business person. I had heard many stories of things, but that just helped me sort of prepare myself for the business side of art as well.
Yeah. 24,
Sean, did you
25.
say? Sorry, Sean, did you say what kind of imagery it was? It was just student stuff that was.
Well, no, I didn't actually. So I was starting to dabble in just portraits of friends, a little bit of figurative stuff. I was going way more like away from illustration and into just like more traditional based work. And I knew if I like painted my friends, I would always have subject matter. I would always have subject matter that meant something to me. And it didn't have to be too deep or conceptual, but it would be meaningful. And so I did a
Yep.
lot of just painting of friends and maybe putting them in their environment so that I have like an environment in the piece
Sure.
too, but it's
Okay.
based on the subject. And then I
Mm.
did some religious pieces in school too. I grew up Catholic. I'm not religious at all, probably one of the least religious people, but I grew up that way and I've been around it and been around the art. And I remember being in church and just looking at a huge crucifix and liking the art part of it. And so when I was in college, I had to take art history and noticed that like everybody from the beginning through like Warhol had done their version of religious art. So I did a crucifixion and a
Sure.
Pietà and things like that. And those got in the gallery. And those were kind of the big pieces that got in the gallery that got a lot of attention. And,
Oh, wow.
because they were like, my crucifixion was like 8 feet tall and it was a back pose. So I was trying to do something different, a hanging back pose with no cross and just doing something, doing my own thing, maybe getting it out of my system a little bit, all those years
Hmm.
of being in scripture. But I liked it, and I would almost revisit those subjects now just because I think they're powerful images, and going to Italy every year now and seeing it again, it's like I still like think the imagery is really cool.
I wanted to start to talk about, uh, I guess the easiest, the clearest way to put it, that is the least ambiguous and hopefully sets us off in the right directions, is really to talk about your creative process, like how you go about finding the things that you think are important and interesting to paint. Now, when I was introduced to your work kind of years ago, I think it was a series of people that I would say are probably kind of from a, wow, this is going to be the worst, some sort of subcultural world, tattoo adjacent.
Yes.
What I pictured as an East Coaster as like that sort of West Coast sort of alt culture. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's the worst description of people that you've ever heard, but maybe I don't know if you can kind of talk us through that group of imagery, like that world that you were in at the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, no, that's good. I like how you delivered that because my gallery used to upset me with that stuff. They would call me, "You're the tattooed chick painter." So yours was much more thoughtful and eloquent and respectful. And I'm just like, it was just my friends, like
Mm.
I got tattoos. I like tattoos. I've kind of always liked them. As a kid, I used to draw 'em myself, planning my tattoos. And it never went away. I'm still getting them, as much as they hurt and I don't want to. So it was just like my friends, I painted them. I figured, well, I don't want to make it look like, in school we painted people dressed in armor and, it was like a lot of that kind of traditional costumes, like we're trying to paint something from the past. And I just found it more interesting to do my version in the present, currently, or
Mm.
at the time I did. But then when they started calling me the tattooed chick painter, I was really like, "I'm not the tattooed chick painter. I am just doing that right now." And so I actually did like rebel a little bit and try and paint all the same people with jackets on, and just to see what
Mm.
would happen if I started hiding all the tattoos, and it did okay. But it was
Yeah.
like when I started painting my male friends, it was just those didn't do as well for some reason. I guess people don't want just
Fascinating.
ugly dudes. Yeah, super
Yeah.
weird.
All right.
And
So, oh, go ahead.
I've had galleries say, like, "If you painted the girls again, we'd sell them." I'm like, "I know, and I could sell them without you, but I just, like, want to keep moving forward and trying different things."
Fascinating.
Yeah, I remember. All right, so back when I was in school, there was an artist who was there when I was studying, called Ryan Brown. I don't maybe you know him, I don't know, but I remember he had kind of had a bit of like a professional life, whereas the rest of us, we were just, you know, second or third year students. We hadn't like kind of been out there in the world or whatever, you know, working with galleries and stuff. But he had, and so he was this slightly cynical like fountain of information about that world. I remember he said,
Yeah.
and I cringe so hard at this, uh, but I don't think he's wrong necessarily. That like if you're gonna sell figurative work in galleries, it's pretty girls and tough looking guys. Like that's like that. Those are your
Yeah,
subjects, you know.
right.
And I
Yeah.
thought at the time, like, oh no, come on, it's, you know, I mean, you can't be so, but it's not totally
Can't be
wrong, is
so
it?
realistic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you know,
Honestly,
like
though
my little like not teenage, my like early 20s sort of artistic world was kind of crumbling. Going, you mean I can't, you know, paint whatever I want to paint and people will like it or whatever?
yeah, it's funny, I mean, when I came into it and I was showing at that Morseburg gallery, I had painted the one piece that people seem to know of mine, one of the more well-known pieces because it was in the BP Portrait Award, of my friend Chantal with the ribbons in her hair, and she's just kind of looking forward with big eyes. Like that, they had that in the gallery for pretty affordable, much more affordable than anything I sell now, and no one bought it because it was too edgy because of the tattoos. Like, so when I came into it doing that stuff, I had people who were excited to see something new, but I had many more people that were kind of like confused by it because of the
Wow.
world I was showing.
Huh.
And that's
Yeah.
fine. You know, I've always kind of felt like I can dip my toes in a lot of different scenes and worlds, but I don't really fit 100% in any of them, which is okay. Maybe it's
Yeah.
because I'm a middle child. That up a lot. It's like my ability to blend. But you gotta be over here alone in the corner.
And
Yeah, yeah.
you
You went
also
straight
are
to the psychological
multi-talented.
angle.
You have like
Hmm?
many gifts, so you exist in these different worlds, and with your
Yeah,
knife making and your
it's
sports or whatever, from what I can see from
right.
outside.
Yeah, I think I was thinking about this podcast and how you guys, Stephen had mentioned about just like inspiration and stuff like that. And
Mm,
I need less inspiration. Like that's my my problem is like
mm,
I need to focus a little bit. Like I want to do everything, but like you mentioned, yeah, I love sport. You know, like as my version of exercise, I love doing physical activities, and knife making is super fun. It's an art that is very physical as well, and the building guitars is really the same similar thing. It's just like I like
mm.
three-dimensional stuff. I like using my hands. Um,
Mm.
and then playing guitar too is another thing I love, like making the noise after you've made the thing to make the noise.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
But sometimes I think like, am I not focused enough? You know, I see people who like I started with and they're still doing the painting thing and they're doing very well. And I'm like, drifting over here and over there. And like, I don't know. It's just me, I guess. I wouldn't do it any other way.
Yeah.
Did you like, by the way, did you always kind of have that inkling? Or is it something you notice, you know, kind of 20 years in or whatever, that you feel like now you're more like that than you were when you were younger?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know for sure. I mean, I grew up playing sports because it was just like, that Catholic school existence. Sports are a big part of it. Whether you are athletic or not, it seemed like everybody played sports. And so, like, I
Mm,
did that as a kid. I grew as a kid. I was around my dad who was doing the jewelry, but I didn't really like find it interesting. So I think it is a lot of it as I get older. I'm finding interest in other avenues. Like the music thing I've been doing pretty long time, like 30 years or so, but like there's years where I kind of slow down and years where I play a lot.
mm,
Um, I think, yeah, I don't know. Maybe after the pandemic too, like when I all of a sudden had time to myself, I got
mhm.
to kind of explore. I've been dabbling in the knives for years at that point, but I didn't, but I almost got to like deep dive it harder and learn more about it and get into the engraving aspect of it. So decorating the knives, which was cool because it really brought like the 3D art together with the 2D art. And so back to like
Yeah.
drawing, but drawing acanthus leaves and Baroque scroll type of designs, and and then learning that whole art form, which was a whole language to it that I hadn't really known about. And so yeah, I think as I
Awesome.
get older, I just maybe as I'm running out of time, I'm like I want to do this and I want to do that, and I want to learn how to do
Running out
everything.
of time.
It feels like that. I don't know, maybe because my son's like a teenager. It's just every year feels a little more and more like I'm running out of time. I'm
Yeah.
gonna have so many unfinished projects when I die, guaranteed. I won't be
Yeah.
wrapping up any. Yeah, which is fine. I think I'd rather it that way than like my dad's retired and he's just kinda, like, doing random stuff now, but I think when I'm his age, I'm not gonna be just waiting around. I'm gonna be trying to learn something new or refine something differently, or I don't know, I just like doing stuff. I'm kind of a busybody, I guess.
Yeah. And I mean, I've talked to you about this a little bit before, but also like painting kind of because of that, like starts to take a little bit of a back seat in some ways, no?
Yeah, it
Or,
does,
or would
for
you say
sure.
it
It
does? I
takes
don't
a
want to be too
backseat.
presumptuous and say like it does, in fact, but
No,
maybe I could.
no, that's for sure, and I don't want to sound uninspiring or shitty to people that I don't like painting as much as I used to, but it's not that I don't like painting as much as I used to. I love painting. I look at it every day. I think about projects I want to do every day. I maybe don't do it as much anymore, but I have to do it because it's the only way I pay my bills. So no matter what, like bills are due every month. I gotta
Mm,
paint and draw every month. It's just part of what I do. But it maybe because it is such the one thing that I do that's the real money maker, I have to do it. There's a little less fun in that in some way.
yeah.
Where the other things I don't, I actually have dabbled in making money doing other things. I got people who want me to build them guitars. I've got and it's like, yeah, maybe, but like you're gonna have to pay me painting prices now because it's just like I've been at that game so long where I can make more money for my time. Where these
Mm,
new skill sets that I'm working on, like I built a knife for one of my collectors, and like it's one of the coolest things I feel like I've made because it brings together the 3D, the 2D, the design, everything in it. But it took me so long, and for the amount of money I quoted him, I would
Huh,
never do it again
huh,
because
yeah.
I could make like 5 or 6 massive paintings in that same period of time and make, 10 times the money easily or more.
Yeah.
But I'm very proud of the job, but it wasn't like it was a good,
Mm,
lucrative project for me. And I almost wanna just, like, trade it, like, next commission, I'll be like, "Well, let me get that knife back, and then we'll do a commission that way." Because I just like that one, I feel like I didn't wanna let that go.
yeah. Do you have paintings like that, by the way?
I have a few. Well, that one of that girl I was talking about, that ended
Yeah.
up that was for pretty cheap at the gallery and ended up in the National Portrait Gallery. At some point, I said, "It's not for sale." Like I'd read some article about keeping your own work here and there. Like every few pieces, keep one for yourself, and like because that one it didn't win the BP Portrait Award, but they used it on the catalog, which means it was on the banners and on the posters all over town. I didn't go out there because I was just like barely out of school, too broke
Yeah.
to afford to go to London for a show at that point. I just could afford to send the painting out there, and even that
Yeah.
probably cost me about $8 back then. It was very difficult to do. So that piece I'm kinda holding on to because it's cool. It's got, like, the stickers on the back that have, like, National Portrait Gallery stickers and all that. Um, and honestly, like, I do have some of my favorite pieces, but only because those haven't sold because there was dudes in them or
hmm.
whatever,
As there was
painting
dudes in them.
just dudes.
Dudes are the enemy of commerce in painting, I'll tell you. It's not easy
No.
to develop a market for the gnarly looking guy, you know?
Yeah, I know, and I got a hallway of some of my favorite pieces. They're big ones, but I think they're someday they'll sell, maybe when I'm dead, but I'm fine hanging them because I think they're some of my proudest moments with paint, and if no one wants to hang it on their wall other than me, then I'm okay with that.
Could you, since you describe in that way, like what is it about them that makes you see them as that? Like what qualities?
I think I think I was really just painting for even though I was working on gallery shows, I was going against what the dealers were telling me and following my heart more instead of like just doing more paintings of the girls and stuff because I knew they would be an easier sell. Not that I don't like doing it, but I really enjoy painting the male figure, male faces, like a little more angles or whatever. I like doing everything and anything, so I don't love being pigeonholed into like this is what you do and this is what you're doing, and like it's like I know what I'm doing. You don't have to tell me what I'm doing. Um, so I think that I was probably just really open to painting something from the heart, and they were and I don't know. I think that's it, they're more personal in some sense because it was, like, just about my relationships with some of my guy friends, which was different than what I was doing, and I think I was probably painting some of the females more of as a sellable thing. I had heard,
Yeah.
like, what you're talking about what Ryan Brown had said when I was at, John Pence Gallery in San Francisco once, they kinda gave me the hierarchy of what sells, and males and male nudes were on the bottom of the list, which was surprising, especially even in a place like San Francisco,
Wow.
but it was sort of landscapes and still lives were above figures, and portraits were barely da in the list because no one wants portraits of random people, but it was
Yeah.
interesting, and that always kinda stuck with me just having heard that at such a young age.
Yeah, it's funny how like those advices just like lock. I mean, I can remember it like yesterday, Ryan kind of delivering that line, and I was just, it kind of. I mean, then you start looking around and like finding proof of that as well.
Yeah,
That it kind
yeah,
of is that way.
absolutely. Yeah, and it's good. I mean, it's good to kind of be aware of those types of things, I think, but, it's also like it's a weird balance being an artist, like doing what you love at the core of your existence and then doing it for money, which is a whole separate thing that I don't like at all.
It complicates things.
It does. It makes it, yeah, but I wouldn't want to do anything else for work, that's for sure.
Yeah,
But the
it's odd, isn't it?
relationship,
Because like your whole goal, I think, when you're starting out, is to like get to that place where you can finally, you know, um, fund the time that you want to work, with your actual work. I think that's like such a big target for so many amateurs, is to get to that place. And you arrive there and you realize that it comes like a little bit at a cost. And it
yeah,
seems like
for sure.
you kind of felt that in your work.
Yeah, definitely, but I'm also just so stubborn sometimes, like the girl I was talking about again that I was painting with the ribbons in her hair,
Mm.
there became a waiting list for paintings of her. I could have just kept painting her and kept selling them, but once I heard from my gallery that I had a waiting list for her, I stopped painting her. Nothing to do with her, nothing to do with enjoying painting her, just some weird stubborn thing I have that says, "Don't tell me what to do."
Yeah, are
I
you a
I can't.
contrarian, Sean?
Yeah, maybe, must be, like, or just some sort of self-sabotager, but, yeah, I've done that, and I want to do what I want to do, which isn't always, you know, the smart thing.
Sean, I can totally relate to what you're saying. I mean, I think that one of the things that people don't realize when they're younger as they pick this up is like the thing that you love will become the thing that is like a business. All of a sudden, it's a fully operating business. You have to like you treat it as a business. And it's weird because really good painters like yourself, sometimes like if a gallery tells you to do something, there's just a trigger, like who the hell are you to tell the artist,
Yeah,
like I'm supposed to tell you, you know what I mean, like so it
yeah,
gets into this weird like world that it just wasn't, you don't expect it until you're actually in it.
yeah. Yeah, it's tricky. I had, one of my last solo shows scheduled. I backed out of it at the last minute because it was years ago with this one gallery I had shown with, and I got the pieces still, and she was just kept saying, "Oh, no one's gonna buy this," and it's like,
Huh.
can you just be quiet, like, and do your job of, like, you work for me,
That's
so
yeah.
pretend you like it and sell it.
Hmm.
Like, you don't have to like it, you just have to sell it. That's your job.
Mm.
But if you're gonna start telling people that you don't like it,
It
well,
won't
now then
sell.
you're not doing your job.
Yep.
Yeah, it definitely won't sell. So,
Yep.
I just ended up backing out, and then she had to close the gallery down, but it's just like, I can't have that relationship with, especially if
Yep.
you're going to take 50% and you're not going to guarantee me anything up front. You can have me do a weird portrait commission, which I've done,
Mm.
but if I got 50% up front, I'm down to get weird. Let's go for it, and I know you're going to pay me at the end of it. But if there's no guarantee that you're going to do your work after I do my work, then you don't get to tell me what to
Sorry. We just need to like clip that. You got 50% up front. Let's get weird. Let's.
do. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could show you guys a portrait I'd never posted that got really weird, but it was super fun.
That's great. You got paid for it.
I got paid really well for it, and it was so much fun because of all that, like getting weird, way less art direction, and
Nice.
paid what I asked for. But yeah, then it's just like the gallery world. I like galleries. I like the world. I should have probably stuck it out a little bit, but it's just that whole thing about like maybe you'll get paid. I don't like.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I mean, galleries are a huge part of how business is done. I just
Yeah, we need that.
like, yeah, but someone telling you that she doesn't like it up front, they it's a difficult thing because maybe your collectors would have liked it
For
and
sure. Yeah,
she had
and
no
I was
clue,
liking it.
and you liked it. Yeah. So
Yeah, I was really proud.
Yeah.
yeah, fascinating.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a balance, the balancing art and business, no matter who you're working for, there's always that like compromise we talked about. There's always that balance. It's just like
Yep.
how much are you willing to bend the knee, which
Hmm.
is a kind of a lot for me because I went to school to be an illustrator. So I went full in 100% hired hand, and I'm okay with that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
As long as there's a paycheck, then hired hand, I'll do it. And I do a lot of work, like the stuff I'm doing right now with the mint, like you better believe there's a lot of opinions. There's you by the end, it's hardly your design anymore, and it's just like that's fine. That's what we agreed to. But when
Yeah.
I'm doing like fine art or getting to paint personal work, then I got to keep it very much personal.
Yeah.
Something that strikes me as definitely something like I would feel in that situation, but every artist thinks every other artist has it like all figured out.
Hmm.
What I think when I hear you talk about this is that, wow, it's pretty amazing. Like Sean doesn't seem to have evidence of that imposter syndrome that so many of us are familiar with. Is that, have
Yeah,
I got that right? Or is that
I
just
do.
not part of
Oh,
the
no, I for sure have it. Yeah, I think a lot. It's very common. I have it. I don't know. I guess I'm just used to dealing with it. I don't I don't know. I don't post everything because I'm not confident about everything.
okay.
And most of the times I share stuff, it's like I am definitely guilty of, like, wanting to share something before I'm done with it, which is kind of like a modern problem, like, "Let's get it out there and get a response," but, like, I'm
Yeah.
also from an era where that wasn't a thing, like, when I graduated college, I had a pager, so, like, I started my career, like, people had to page me, kind of
Yeah.
even pre, like, regular usage of the internet, like, you still had to use dial-up if you're gonna do, like, emails, so
Yeah.
I think, like, I feel it more, like, posting online, but the imposter syndrome, like, being it's usually back in the day, you just showed your best of the best, and now you almost show everything you're doing and thinking, and I'm maybe a little more scared of doing that. I don't. I mean, there's I'm working on stuff every day, and I'm hardly photographing it or showing it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's there. I'm almost thinking that,
All
and
right, but
there's
you
so much
rock up to a
talent out
meeting
there.
for a congressional medal of honor and you're like, yeah, this is okay.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't think I'm good. I have that, like, I think I'm always just trying to hang in there and keep up with a lot of people, whether it's painting, engraving, knife making, like, I think I can keep up, but I never feel like I'm never gonna feel like I'm the best, or I don't wanna be the best. I wanna be, like, always sort of clawing my way to the top to try and keep up with people. So, yeah, I mean, with more talent and stuff out there, it makes me feel even more like an imposter sometimes. I'm like, "God, these guys are good."
Sean,
Maybe I shouldn't have brought it up. Maybe you were like doing fine and now I've like brought out the
I'm gonna be so insecure for the rest of the day.
Sean, is
you'll
your
do you now or have you at any point ever struggled with a kind of perfectionist feeling about
Oh my God.
your work?
Oh yeah. Everything I do, I'm a
Stop it!
perfectionist
I
for
can't
sure.
believe it. Everybody every time I talk to an artist and I ask them this, like Michael, again, would be like one of the last ones I ever would have thought I would have asked that to. But to
Yeah.
hear you say it, go ahead. I've interrupted you with my shock and surprise, but
No,
please
no.
elaborate.
Yeah, no, I'm totally a perfectionist. I will not sleep if it's not like right. And I notice it more, maybe other people notice it more in my when they see me learning other things. Like if it's a little off, I'm gonna have to figure it out. And it's more so with building and things like if it's just not quite right, I'm gonna lose sleep over it. It could be a tiny little thing. I'm gonna go figure it out. And in my time not sleeping and just stressing, I am a for sure a perfectionist.
That's really interesting. But would you
Yeah.
say that's you're feeling that still today like I would imagine, yeah, as you said, maybe more in the fields where you're
The new
still, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I would say probably, you know, more so in those fields because I feel more behind. And in painting, I think I've gotten to the point where I've embraced a little more of the kind of, again, I said happy accidents, but those kinds of things that happen that like could be considered a mistake or they could just be considered something interesting. And some people might like them, some people might not. But I am more forgiving on the painting. It might just be
mm,
that I have way more experience with getting from A to point B or Z or whatever, like, and so I kind of know how to get there a little more efficiently. But
yeah,
there'll be things. I guess there are things probably in paintings I'll leave. I'll be like, nah, it'll be fine. No one will notice. But if it's driving me crazy, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna fix it.
hmm,
So recently you did a scene of multi figures kind of overlapping.
Yes.
Was that invented from your mind, or have you been dabbling in some AI stuff? Is that something I found it all very fascinating?
Yeah.
I'm not like
Yeah.
I'm not an anti person at all.
Yeah, no, and I've been actually dabbling in AI a little bit just to for
Mm,
references, but no, this one I built this reference like probably 3 or 4 years ago because I've
okay.
been wanting to make this big painting. I saw this, I don't remember which sculpture. It was like some sort of not a sarcophagus, but some kind of like sculpture in Rome with a battle relief on the side. I saw pictures of it. And because it was just like the side, it kind of reminded me of like a Dante's Inferno type of hell, just bodies on top
Yeah.
of each other with no coming out, because it was a
Very
relief.
cool. Hmm.
So I had been dabbling in some Western themed work for years here and there, just sort of
Yep.
trying to dip my toes in that water, another place I don't fit. Should have worn my big cowboy hat today. Um, but so I put those two things together, and all I did for that in that one that you saw is there's only two people in it. Two people posing. One is me, and one is my buddy who lives next door to me, who's
Uh-huh.
also a illustrator, painter. All we did was get on the clothing I had. I had like a red union suit and some like we have a bunch of old West clothing for like references and stuff. And I mean,
Yep.
it works out here. We're to wear some of those things because they keep you warmer. They're rugged. And we just did like I used an iPhone, crappy video, slow motion,
Okay.
single light source in front. Like I
Sure.
just knew I always wanted a spotlight in front and a black background, so I could always have consistent lighting and a black background. And we
Nice.
just play fought, like
Okay. Yeah.
grappling,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
swinging punch. Then I
Huh.
go through my phone and just slide it along until I see cool shapes. Once I
Yeah.
see a cool shape, screenshot it. Cool shape,
Nice.
screenshot it. Cool shape of like a white shirt or
Wow.
whatever. Cool gesture. Save as many as I can, throw them all into one file with a black background, and then I just start placing them and like trying to fill in space and create either movement of arms and flow or whatever, and balance of values, and just kind of shading out the bottoms of the bodies, adding cast shadows on top of figures to kind of unify the pieces, make him or I
Yeah.
punch ourselves in the face, which was fun to do, just through
I
two
mean, good for
poses,
you.
and then
That
that's it.
was, yeah. I was under
Yeah,
the
that was
impression that
really
we're entering into a time where it's going to be very, I think we're just going to have to embrace the fact that whatever the end product is, because that's really cool. The process is awesome. I mean,
yeah,
obviously the process of a 19th century painting is awesome too, but we probably
yeah,
don't do that like they did back in the day. So
Yeah.
eventually,
Yeah.
some of this creativity of you, using your phone and figuring out how the hell to do it, some of that is going
Yeah.
to be lost because people are just going to, you know,
Oh, it's happening now.
yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah,
feel like, I mean, even when I was in college teaching, like when I was in college, a lot of problem solving, like they wanted us to take our own reference. Like when I did that crucifixion back scene,
uh-huh,
I bought a wig and put on my bed sheets and I hung myself in a barn. Like that was
huh,
just like what we had to do to get the shot. And we had to use disposable cameras, like the paper ones, and go get them developed. And then whatever you get, and you work with it. Nowadays, yeah, it's crazy, like, what we can do now with I mean, the iPhone pictures are way better than those pictures, and even then, like, sometimes they're not good enough.
yeah,
I had some students who couldn't, like I was having them do these illustrations at the college years ago, and this girl had, like, a girl on her back falling out of the sky, and it just looked like she looked like a girl like, she was looking at a girl laying on the ground, and I'm like she had made it up. I'm like, "Okay, so now take some reference pictures," and she was baffled, like, "How do you do that?" I'm like, "It looks like your friend's sitting on the ground with her arms in the
mm.
air," and it, like so take a picture of your friend doing that. Her, like, mind, like, exploded from the genius of that idea. I was like, "Oh my god, you guys, we gotta use our critical thinkers a little bit." It's not super hard to think about how you can take a picture of somebody. You just don't paint the floor, you know what I mean? Like but that kind of thing, I think people are losing that because most people now just like, well, if I can't find it on the internet, then I can't get it. But now you can do it with AI, and
Yeah, yeah,
and I'll use all of it. I'll use internet references, but I would prefer to use my own. And that's why I
yeah,
did that with the photography of that one. And I've photographed many other people since because those two people in that one painting were just placeholders to have like a variety of people. But since I
yeah,
painted them like a variety of people, I just changed our faces and stuff like that. So there's invention, like where, remove a hat,
absolutely. Yeah,
add a beard, whatever, change the likeness, change the clothing a little bit. But I prefer to have reference and,
yeah,
it's it's
yeah.
it's interesting, like what
It
people
is a very interesting conversation that's happening in the art world now because obviously digital artists. Oh, speaking of, your digital demos are crazy good. That's a hard thing to kind of
Oh,
grasp. I've played around with it a little bit, and for me, it's not the same.
yeah.
You seem to translate like the physical painting, the act of physical painting into the digital realm pretty easily. It's crazy.
Yeah, it took me a bit. I've
Mm.
never been somebody that liked digital work, until the iPad for some reason.
Uh-huh.
Once I
Sure.
got the iPad, I kinda, like, put my hand on it, and it still felt weird because it's glass, but now I love it. I love how fast the pen moves, like
Yeah.
0 resistance, like the
Yep.
wettest paint, but it goes down.
Huh.
But yeah, it's weird. I gotta do a lot of work on there now, and,
And you have
one
like
thing I
favorite
learned
brushes and things, so you've just gotten used
I
to like
have I have a couple, yeah, like, I don't make brushes, which somebody early on told me to make brushes. I'm like, "Well, there's like
okay.
100 to start with." Like, I'll start playing with those before I start making them because there's
Mm.
a lot of options. Um, the brushes are one thing, the color's another thing, like, for human skin, I treat it like a Zorn palette because, you can't add blue to orange, but you have the hue slider on the outside, you keep that in between red and yellow only, because once you get to purple or yellow, green, you have no skin tones, and then within the wheel in the center, you have the black and white. So you're basically doing Zorn by red, yellow, black, and white, and you
Red,
can
yellow.
mix
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
you just keep your slider in the red family. If you want a more
Yeah,
gray a
yeah,
purplish color,
yeah.
you lean it towards the purple, but
That
not
that
even close.
that's
It's
helpful. Yeah.
all in there. You
Mhm.
could color pick one color down, like a brown in the shadows. You go up and left, and now you're cooler and lighter. And then you go up and right, now you're lighter and warmer again. And it's just like it's really I was doing like more Zorn palette with digital painting at the time too, separately, and realizing the relationship and how they both helped me understand each
Mm.
other, the digital and the limits of Zorn palette or whatever, whatever people call the Zorn palette.
They're really
But that
good.
kind of but, like,
Mm.
honestly, that was huge because you don't really have to, like I don't color pick, I'm not one of those people, I like to just, like, find the color based on more of an idea I have, and so, like, now that I know that, it's really easy to find skin tones when you just leave that in the red to yellow, and then just you can go all the way totally desaturated to black and white in that little wheel.
Huh.
But that stuff's never usable
And you
for
have
skin tone.
have you taught that? Like, have you done
Yeah,
workshops?
I've been teaching that a little bit. Yeah, not a ton. A lot of times I'll do it in another class because a lot of people are interested, but not everybody's interested.
Have you ever done like
But
a
yeah,
larger, how just open-ended Zoom kind of like as many students can fit?
I've only done that recently. I did that for an oil painting thing, but I think for digital it'd be great because you can screen share and you're getting the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
full resolution
Yeah, you should
image
do it.
without like angle to it.
Sean, you've worked in a lot of different things and seemingly at a very, like, to me, like a strangely high level in a lot of different things. Making chess sets, for example.
Mm, yeah,
Like, is
yeah.
this like,
Chess.
how do you approach like these different things? Like, how do they enter your life? Is it you're sitting on the sofa and it's chess sets, or is there some sort of opportunistic thing where it's like somebody's talking to you about it and, like, wants to engage you to do it, and that's your entry point?
That was that. I mean, the chess sets came from it was a commission. I had been teaching. I taught Michelle Pfeiffer for a bunch of years. She even came to Rome with our program one year. But I brought her to a framer, and she was like, "Which she had just started watching Queen's Gambit because that was out. She's like, "Would you make me a chess set? Because you're building all the knives and stuff." I'm like, "Yes, I would definitely make you a chess set." I didn't question it. I'm like, "Yeah, that sounds fun. Sure." And then so I watched Queen's Gambit because I don't know anything about chess. I can play a mean game of checkers, but chess is just a little
Yeah.
like I'd have to really deep dive chess because I don't want to pretend I know anything about it. I don't know the first move you make. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll make one. And I thought that was exciting. And I knew it was going to be a fun commission and I'd just be making stuff because I was into making things. But that after that, I realized, oh God, I got to buy a lathe now. I don't have a lathe because I tried because everything's so round, and so that's like one of the only ways to do it. And then I
Mm.
started, realizing how hard it was. But I had tools to work with metal and wood, and I had a bunch of wood and metal materials too. So I made one version of it, one of each piece for her to see, and she liked it and approved it. And then I realized, oh my God, there's actually 34 of these.
Oh my God.
Not just like whatever, like one, there's like 6 different things or whatever. I'm like, wait, I got to make 34 now. And
Wow.
that became tedious. One of the hardest jobs I've ever done. It took me over a year
Wow.
because it's just, at that point, it became busy work, like cutting on a
Yeah.
lathe every day, my back hurting and trying to make everything symmetrical. And as far as you said, like the high level thing, that's my perfectionism
Mm.
right there. That's where like
Mm.
I'm not gonna do it if I can't do it that way, in a way that like that I would find interesting. And I have a lot of, I think I like art and other I've collected knives and things like that too. And when I'm looking at those knives other guys make, I'm looking at every tiny little thing and scrutinizing it. If it's not perfect, I'll judge it and I know it. And like there is that
Yeah.
perfectionism 100%. And so that's why when I do something, like I do it, if I'm gonna do something, I'm going all in. Even just like hockey or whatever, at one point I realized I'm not going to go pro, but I'm still working at it. I still want to be a better hockey player every day I go out there. Or
Mm.
right now, dirt biking. It's just fun. It's fun to go ride, but I'm working on skill based stuff with it too because I want to be a more efficient, faster rider.
Yeah.
I mean, who cares? Well, I'm an old man now. When I need to be more faster dirt bike rider through the woods, like just because I want to, because it's more fun. Maybe because I like being a little dangerous too, but like
Mm.
I'm working on stuff there. I'm working on trying to make better guitars. I'm trying to do better paint jobs on my guitars now, cleaner, and all
Where do you
that
think that
stuff.
comes
So
from?
there's the perfectionism,
No, just that like there's this
or
kind of,
just
for lack of a better word, like a work ethic, right? Like, because I kind of
yeah,
recognize myself in that, and it's easy to call it like obsessive, but I
yeah.
think obsessive
Oh, for
is a bit
sure.
too generic for like what it is.
Yeah.
I've always, like, in my life, gotten into some genre, been really transfixed by how it works. And like the point for
Mm,
me is like to figure out how to bend all the materials into the thing that they
mm,
eventually become. Once I've done that,
yeah.
like a lot of whatever that impulse was kind of fades away. And I
Hmm.
just hearing you describe this, like it seems so familiar to me, but I've never gotten really anybody else's perspective on like how they describe that part of themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. For me, I guess it could kind of fade away a little bit. I think there's like this desire just to be. I always like again back to the kind of imposter syndrome. If you feel like you're never where you are, if you feel like you're behind where you literally are, I think that like you'll push yourself to keep discovering and keep wanting to learn more about it, keep wanting to understand it more, do it better. And I still do that with painting, I look at everybody's work or when we're out in Italy or whatever, and you see other people every day, like, I wanna be better, like, I feel like I'm
Mm.
behind, I wanna be better, I wanna keep pushing, and that's everything with the knife making, I've slowed down on it, but I've still ground on some knives and worked on some things randomly here and there lately, but my focus is more on the music and the guitars, maybe because it was, like, hot in the summer and I didn't wanna work in the garage, and I'm working inside.
Yeah.
But same thing with guitar. It's the crazy how much stuff I'm learning about it, like, because 'cause I'm just constantly searching for more information, and I think anything I'm doing still with painting, I'm searching for the information. I'm looking at painters, I'm looking at, I'm looking at AI art, like, there's AI art that's beautiful right now, and it's kind of a bummer in some way because I wish somebody actually made it by hand, but I still think it's really cool to look at and still very inspiring. I'll still try and, like, do things that AI is doing, try and be better than the computer or whatever. But there's that. I don't know if it's just like that. It is an obsessive thing, obsessive compulsive. I don't know. I have that
Is it a work
mentality.
ethic? Like, is it that, like, you know what I mean? Like you had to like kind of earn something kind of growing up, or is it?
I don't know. I mean, I don't. I think I have. I'm a workaholic, but I don't know if I have a good work ethic. Like, is it a good work ethic if I'm like got to do this mint job and I'm building guitars instead till the last minute?
Mm.
Is that a good work ethic? Is that actually? That's just
Kind of,
like my
isn't it?
brain.
It feels like it is.
Yeah, yeah, in some way. It's knowing I can
Yeah,
push off real work to do the work I want to do and save myself enough time to I get my jobs done, and they're always done on time. But
yeah,
it's just like, yeah, I don't have a problem getting out of bed to do stuff.
yeah. Was there a time like pre-painting? Like I know you said like when you were a teenager, maybe you kind of started like into your education. Like what were these activities like in a kind of pre-painting existence?
Oh, I didn't have nearly as many. I think I was probably pre-painting, I was still more into, like, skateboarding and biking and I mean, I played music a lot too. I was really into guitar when I was in college. I played a lot in college, so there was that, but there just wasn't as many. And I don't
Hmm.
know, is it because now there's more access to seeing this stuff, more exposure to seeing everybody's like I don't know, like you can learn anything on YouTube right now, and
Yeah.
pretty high level of most of the stuff I'm into learning. Like there are very high level versions of it available for free. Like
Sure.
the educational part, like, and it's an incredible time to me. It's an incredible time to be a curious person who wants to learn things.
Yeah.
Like they show how it's like I want to know how everything's made. You know, I'd be stoked to learn to make anything. I'd go to a factory of anything and learn how to make it. It'd be fun to me, at least a little bit.
Yeah, there's
So
this
I don't.
there was this moment in skateboarding, like this inflection point in skateboarding when I think like it was through Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, the video game. Like
Mhm.
Michael used to skate as well. You used to skate, I used to skate. Um, I remember, there was this moment where combo tricks like into and out of grinds was
Mhm.
like a bit beyond. You know what I mean? Like one or two
Yeah,
people you'd see in like a skate video would do it.
yeah,
Now, going down a handrail, you don't see almost anything but tricks into or out
yeah,
of like these
right,
major grinds. And it was because
yeah,
I theorize that jump happened because the video games helped people imagine that,
Mm.
like help people
mhm,
imagine that,
yeah,
oh, what if you did that? Because before I
yeah,
just think the mentality was, no, we can't. Like that's too much.
yeah, for sure. Oh, I'm a skateboarder from the '80s, so we had a skateboard that went one direction, and we were bombing hills, started,
The fish.
ollieing and stuff. No one was. hardly anyone was kick flipping those things.
Yeah.
But it's the same. I've been seeing it right now too, like in like motorcycles. There was a time where they said you couldn't flip a motorcycle, and now like if you don't flip a motorcycle, you're not doing the freestyle stuff. They're doing like triple flips on motorcycles now. Or back flipping off of the base of a tree, stuff that was considered impossible before.
Yeah.
And now what's next? They're gonna have to, like, in these motorcycle races, gonna have to ride a big loop up the ceiling or something because it's just gonna get crazier and crazier. And it's the same for skateboarding. I think video games probably did that, but I think the everybody's highlight reel of their life being on the internet has also done that.
Mm.
You just humans definitely want to push each other, but like if you're just seeing people killing it every day, then you have much more to try and like keep up to. And I think, for the people who are driven, it's great because everything keeps getting pushed to levels higher than they've ever been. But for people who are don't have the drive, it's very discouraging to see people being good at stuff all the time. You're not seeing the hundreds of failures or thousands of failures that people are doing anymore. People don't share that. They only share the good stuff. So I think there's a little bit of a problem there with people thinking that like things should be easier to do, but they're just not. So they just
And that's
think they're
why
not
we're
good
doing
enough.
this podcast, Sean. That's exactly like so Michael and I can show the world how much you can struggle. And of course,
We can
Make
always
us
still
sweat.
struggle. No, they're looking really good. I'm always a little self-conscious of being fully disrobed of my hat and glasses, but you guys are making me look cool.
well, the thing is, we couldn't pass up. For me, like I couldn't pass this up. You don't get a dome like that every day.
Yeah. I figured that would be, and honestly, when I paint self-portraits, I always do it that way because I just, form of an egg. Who doesn't like painting an egg?
You're very gracious about that, Sean. I appreciate you giving us this one, because we were wanting it when we invited you on.
Yeah, there was another one in there with the head showing too. I was like, I'll do some with glasses, some hats, and some nothing.
So what's the next painting phase for you? Like what is like got you hot about painting right now? Like subject wise.
Gosh. Yeah, I'm in a weird place. Like I'm supposed to be doing more Western work, but I just kind of like, I like it and I want to do it, but I don't know if I'm fully into it. I don't know if would be doing it for the wrong reasons. I think people are doing well with it. There's a lot of interest in that scene in buying art, but like I don't know if I would, like I've told you before, like just because I can make money, will I do it? Because I want to be able to enjoy what I'm making. So I have some plans for some things to do there with that. I do want to do that fight scene that we had talked about earlier. The plan has always been for me to paint that 10 by 12 feet or so. Massive wall of just bodies, because I want you to feel when you're standing in front of it like there's these bodies like kind of coming in and out of the darkness. And at the scale I've painted it so far, the last one I like it a lot. It's a little bigger, but it's only like 30 by 45 inches or so. It just it feels cool, but I need to figure out this big one, and there's nowhere it's gonna go. There's no plan for it. Pretty sure no one will want to pay for it. It's just gonna be it's like absolutely one of those things that like I don't care that it's not made for a show. It's not made for a space. I'm gonna have to find a wall big enough just to do it, which we have in this house. We've got like a couple 13 footers, so I can figure that out. Getting in and out is gonna be difficult, but I might just do it on a roll. So that's like always been in my mind. I've been kind of working out this like idea for a Caravaggio screenplay about his life, kind of the more dark side of everything. There was plenty of that, and so I've been working on little painting ideas to just get like the story, the visuals I'm going for. So I'm actually playing around with AI a little bit, but I'm doing all painting for that too, either digital or oil painting, just to develop like some shots of scenes. All these like projects that are not like I just need to do them, but I haven't like tried to sell them or anything, or even talk to anybody who potentially could buy them. Like that, I'd have to shop around later once I get the package together, the writing and some visuals, shop it around and see what the next step would be, and then That big painting though is definitely something that like I want to do. It's been in my mind. I can picture it too. And once I can picture it, then I got to do it. But it's just more like finding the space because I don't have a reason. I just need to get the space, get it set up, and start going to town. But I do want to like add more people to it, other friends. I thought about like putting in a bunch of people I knew as long as they were willing to dress up and play the part.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't have anything gallery wise lined up. Couple, I'm
No,
doing
but
like
I'm
I
not
said, the
interested. I
murals
mean,
for
like the gallery thing, like it's, obviously like it's a big part of like what we have to do, but it's kind of, I'm very interested in projects exactly like what you're talking about, or it's kind of, I sincerely feel that if like you're going to go into this career, like the idea should come first and then like figure out
yeah,
how to fund it
yeah,
kind of
then
thing. Like
sell it later.
that's,
Yeah,
if you're doing it the other way,
yeah.
like it's such a weird career move to take. Like, why would you be like, there's so many other careers that you could take that would be far more remunerative and less frustrating.
Yeah, but we do see it a lot, and it's tricky too because once you get into a gallery and then you start selling, it's like you almost like do you start liking that work of yourself better because it's selling, or is it like
Mm.
I do the opposite? I'm like, oh, it's selling. I'm out of here. This isn't for me. Somebody
Yeah.
likes it. No, I want somebody to hate it and tell me why it's bad. But yeah, well then I mean that's that. Like I'm kind of like working on that stuff. Those are the painted things, and then more probably some Western type of themes. We all kind of I don't know with the Western scene. It's weird because I feel like I like it. A lot of us like it. A lot of people who grew up in America. That's just kind of the history we were taught a little bit.
Mm.
That's part of the history we're taught or whatever. But so I'm still dabbling in like what can I do with those pieces, the old west stuff that I find interesting. I had dabbled in a few pieces, maybe only one or two, about the Donner Party, which is I don't know if you guys know that kind of famous thing that happened in the Sierras over here, like a nice soft cannibal story of the Old West, but it was real. These people like were traveling, and that's what we learned in California because we used to go
Mhm.
skiing up in that area, Donner Pass, Donner Lake, Donner Ranch, all this place where these people had to eat each other. And as much as like I know collectors will find that completely disgusting,
Yeah.
and
Go, Sean. No,
ever
listen,
let
this
me
is, this is the freshest, hottest take on Western art that
like
I've got. I'm all into it.
so I did a piece like last year, and it's a guy lifting another guy, and it's there in Western stuff, and people think, oh, he's drunk or whatever. But the title is Kesselberg's Cabin, and Kesselberg was one of the worst in that group. Who, when they found him, he was actually healthy and fully fed.
Oh,
So
fantastic.
I just made it kind of weird. Like you only know if you go digging to see what this is about. But Kesselberg was one of the German immigrants who like he ended up like making it to California, and I think he opened a restaurant, which is disgusting.
Nice one.
A diner, Kesselberg's Cafe or something.
Okay.
No, I was just making
Can you
like
still go there? That's the question. Can we still go to Kesselberg's
yeah.
Cafe?
Oh yeah, it's my favorite place to get a steak. Um, but the so that's what the painting's about, but people just think of it as it's some sort of weird Western painting I did. But it's actually, if you go deeper, it's the Donner Party and cannibalism, and that's just to me more interesting. I don't know because it's also true. It's a true thing that happened,
It's
and
history. Yeah,
and
yeah.
I wanted it's history, and it's like I don't know, history's pretty dark, a lot of it, and I just find that stuff a little more interesting, and I know that this turns people off, which is okay. Maybe it's a little
Would you
more like
describe yourself as a like a contrarian?
I don't know. Yeah, we were kind of talking about that, and
Yeah.
I guess I must be. This is what we're finding out about me through this. This. Yeah, I guess I must be.
I think this. I mean,
Put
again,
up,
like
put
I
up.
feel like with a lot of creatives and a lot of artists, like there's some. All right, I'm generalizing. I feel like there's some kind of initial impulse that I find in common with a lot of artists, wherein their idea for something starts, because they heard something that they either like disagree with, think is stupid, or should be done differently. And like that's like the beginning of the creative like process for them, is like,
Yeah.
no, you would never do it that way. ...
Right.
You'd start to do it this way.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess in some senses, but I'm also guilty probably of being like, well, I want to do it the way that I like it. What I'm, when I see something I like it, I want to do it that way. But I will absolutely like argue the contrary a lot of the time. I think I don't. I would say I think I do both, because I'm very guilty of like having the feeling of wanting to follow a trend as well, or follow a thing. But then maybe I'll
Mm.
question that or something later.
Mm.
Yeah,
That's
that's
interesting.
a tough one. Hard to say. I mean, I think humans in general, we're pack people. We follow,
Mm.
and so I think, I don't know. Maybe that goes to just I think of that like with religion and stuff. I don't know if you guys are religious. Like I said, I'm not, and I just like I think a lot of people who are religious don't know why they're religious. They just like were born into it, and it's become thousands of years now of just like this deep following of, let's say, Christ. If you pick Christ as your guy, and like
It's
I
very true.
understand why people do it. I definitely understand why people do it, but I don't always do that.
Mm.
Like I definitely like I was forced into that life, and I lived it, but I always questioned it because it didn't make sense to me. If it doesn't make sense to me, then I question it. But I give everything a chance, I suppose.
You know what? You sound like not a contrarian, Sean. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna label
Yeah.
you as a
Yeah.
non-contrarian.
Non-contrarian. We're going back to the middle. I'm a middle.
I don't know, like, what, there's
balance
no
out.
alternative. There's no opposites to, you're either contrarian or just like, you're just not that. I don't know what
Yeah.
you're an
No,
affirmative
guess
vader.
not.
I don't know.
I'm a part-time contrarian when it suits
All right,
me.
why don't we call it right there? I'm a part-time contrarian.
All right. That's it. We figured it out. It's been a
This has
good
been
therapy
great,
session.
man. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, my pleasure, and great pieces. I'm very honored.
That is a wrap on this episode of the Idiosyncratic Nightmare Podcast. On behalf of myself and Michael Klein, I want to say thank you so much for spending time with us today. Thank you to Sean Cheatham for sharing his insights and thoughts. And as always, a huge shout out to the Dead Ghosts. Thank you so much for letting us use your song as the intro-outro music for our show.